Well, I'm pretty excited. We are going to attempt to do a very spontaneous, alla prima style. Alla prima meaning all at once. It's not something where first you do this, then you do this, then you do this, kind of a layered style that I've been emphasizing. On this one, we're just going to wet the paper and just see what happens. I have a lovely live display here of geraniums. And as you can see in my background, these are some of the examples we're going to be doing. We're going to be working with some very wet backgrounds. And at the end, we may be adding some of these positive shapes. We've also got some of these things where it's just like an explosion. I was just having so much fun. I just went all over the place. You can see I went from the explosion to a lot more controlled, but I still was concerned about touching off in 3, possibly 4 places and interlocking a lot of shapes. So it was absolutely fun. And this one, you'll notice, has a margin going around with the white exposed at the end, whereas all the others are what we call just a vignette style. They go off to the edge, and I usually soften the edge. So I'm going to try one of these today with the edge partly limited. And I save a little white. Here's another one. This is one of my very favorites. And here you can see we started really wet, came in with some watercolor, and then came in later. And all these bright blues you see here were actually done with these watercolor crayons. So we're going to be working with watercolor crayons today. And they work beautifully wet, and they work beautifully on the dry surface later. And this last one is kind of a fun one because I was more controlled. You can see I actually did a dark pattern in the background and then drew on top of it with some of these white crayons. So today is meant to be fun. Here you can see another start with the white edge that I'm hoping to do. And I like this one because it's got a big scale and a small scale. It does have a negative and positive. And so I'm going to attempt to do all of those today. Here's another one of the morning glories. I had morning glories growing outside of my building for years and years, planted by Leslie Falconer. Beautiful morning glories. They greeted me every day. As you know, they come out in the morning, every day new blossoms. So I had to paint them. Beautiful. And you can see they have a light colored throat coming down, so I had to punch a little dark, little negative dark there to pop that out. And the rest of it was just kind of fun. Light against dark, dark against light. Lots of reversals, lots of fun lines just drawn in. Just the energy of spontaneity. You can do it. And the last one, a little more controlled again. Going out to the edge of the paper. We're going to have more fun painting inside. Okay, so we're going to start by wetting the back. And I'm working on hot press. Now, hot press is a very different paper from cold press. It's made by Arches, but when they press it so smooth. They have these hot presses, and it's just like they iron it right out to an absolute plate surface. Perfectly smooth. So when you have a perfectly smooth surface like that, what happens is the colors tend to puddle up more. They look a little bit brighter, and it's really not as forgiving a surface as the one we're used to working on, but we're going to take a chance and do it anyway. I like the hot press when I'm working with these crayons. So I'm really loading this up. I'm putting a lot of water on here. And I'm leaving that white edge. And I can't really even see where I've wet, but it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. If I hit a dry spot, I'm just going to get out my sprayer. Okay, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is just grab this nice red. Oh, love this. And I also have some photographic references here, and I'll just put those over here. So I'm just going to come in and with my crayon. I'm just going to start drawing. And this, you kind of have to do this while it's wet, so don't wait too long. Once you wet this, you want to start drawing right away. And you can see how the colors are starting to move around. Oh man, this is way too fun. This is way too fun. And I think I'll just come on a few more here. And very often there'll be several of these. And I always like to have them interlock, and I love it when they go off the edge of the paper. And then we might have another one down here. And another thing I really like is they have these little buds that haven't quite opened. Oh, and here's a really grand one right in the middle. Let's get that one in there. So they all kind of come to a center point, and then there's always a couple more over here, maybe one down here. See how that's bleeding out? Ooh, keep your sprayer handy, because I really want these to go. Every now and then I'm going to have to give them an extra little boot. Now I'm going to take and do a little bit of, that's not working. Let's try this one. I'm going to have a, this needs to be a little darker. There we go. My favorite thing of all are these buds. And they're just so playful. And there's all kinds of green shapes here that are intertwining. And of course the stem coming up here. But I need a darker gray or green. Let me try this one. I think I might like this one better. Oh yeah, this is nice. So now I've got another one here with one of those buds hanging down. And I've got another one coming up here with some buds. Now I'm going to go back to my red. You can see already my paper is starting to dry. And one of the things about hot press paper is it dries very irregularly. So you have to keep an eye on it. Now so far I'm just working with line, and that's kind of fun. And I'm going to draw over this green, because I want, the green looks better when it's got some red mixed in it. So we're going to add another one here. Oh man, this was a good year for geraniums. And these buds, of course, have to have a little red on them. And I'll go right over that green. It'll look 10 times better. Now it's time to get a little more green over in here. And I want to think about what am I going to do down here? I can see the irregular drying on my paper. So I'm going to come in and wet this again. Here too. It's really something. You'll not believe this hot press paper, how strange it is. It just completely does its own thing. It's got its own ideas. I'm going to get some of these colors I'm using out so I can go back to them. I think I'm going to do a highlight later with some light blues. I wouldn't mind putting in a little bit of orange into some of these colors, just for a little harmonic enrichment. So you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me when I was a little girl, my mom bought me a new set of 64 crayons. Do you remember the joy you felt when you got that new box of crayons? Oh, I don't know about you, but that was the best. And that's what I like about this, is it really feels like I'm back in the day when I just drew with my crayons. Except, these aren't just any crayon. These are from Switzerland. They're very high quality. It comes, now I have a minimum set that it comes in that's 10 in a box. There's another one with 15 in a box. There's another one with 30 in the box. This one here has 40 in the box, and they have some that have 80. So there's just, anything you want. Now I still want to get back, here's my original red. I couldn't find it because I was holding it in my other hand. That's not good. And every now and then you got to peel these back or break them or whatever. I don't usually have to break them because I push so hard, I break a lot of them. Just to give you an idea what my 20 pack looks like, look at this. I really use them a lot. One of my favorite toys. I want to pull the eye down here, so I think I'm going to start doing one more of these rascals, coming forward and going off the page here, interlocking with this one, and then I'm just going to have a renegade here. This one is just going to come, it's actually right there. I'm looking at it right now. It's wonderful. So I'm going to have this renegade here, and it's going to have all these fun leaf shapes. I love the shape of these particular flowers. There, that is cool. So now we've kind of filled up the page. I maybe need one more little renegade coming down here. And one of the things that's fun to do, I'm always looking for these little buds, or just something that's going to fill the area with something different than what's on the rest of the page. So I think what I'll do is just think about maybe putting in some more of these leaves here and there. So I'm going to switch over to my watercolors. I'm going to switch to a 1-inch flat brush, and we're going to have a little fun stamping right now. So what we want to do is we want to be on a flat surface, and we're going to start with our primary yellow, and just getting that yellow onto this leaf shape here. Then we're going to go into some gold. This is quinacridone gold. The leaf is not wet. The leaf, I just picked it, so it's alive, but it's not wet. And then I'm going to take some Antwerp blue, and see, I have to hold my brush, maybe you can see it better this way, really flat, because I just want to get it on those veins. Let's try that again. I didn't get enough. Now we're cooking. And then I usually like to have a little bit of the color of the flower in here too. So I'm also going to put just a little bit of the red. And now when I put this on here, and just take a tissue to press it down. Well, my surface is wet, so let's see what happens. I was afraid of that. This is actually something that works better when it's dry. But you know what? We never fear. Let's just repeat that. Let's put some more somewhere else. Yeah, we like that color. Maybe one more out here. So I'm going to have to save the stamping for later when I have a dry paper. And meanwhile, I'm just going to have some fun with these. I love this opaque color coming in. And we need to think about more darks. So here's our ticket. This is a lovely, oh, see what I mean? I don't have any trouble breaking these. It just happens. It's okay. So you can see the greens. They're frequently little greens inside. So it's good to add some here. Come down here. Come down here. And some of these dark shapes in here need to be emphasized. So I'm going to pull in some nice negative shapes right now with this darker crayon. And the negative shapes are as much fun as the positive shapes, believe me. So now we've got this little guy up here. And some of these leaves need to be like a shadow. So let's just go in and draw them in. Again, you can see I'm just going to fill that in like a negative shape. I don't usually draw that shape first, but I thought that might make it easier to understand. Well, I think it's time now to have some fun with the watercolors. I'm just going to come right in with the pure watercolor. I'm going to work with about a number 8 brush. And our paper is still wet, but if you could see, it's very randomly wet. Like I said, hot press paper just does its own thing. So we're going to just come in here and paint some of these into some nice bright reds, right on top of the crayons. This happens to be my Quin Coral. So now I'm just going to start filling in some of these beautiful shapes. Down here too, I've got some of it's mixing with that orange crayon. Watercolors and these Caran Dash crayons are very compatible. They never fight with each other. They just love each other. Look at all that beautiful color. Ooh. So we're going now from lines to shapes. And so far I'm just using this one color. And this is my quinacridone coral. I'll leave room in there to put a little bit, some other colors. Try to keep it really spontaneous. Now I like these open rest areas. I'm going to put some color in there, but I like, instead of filling the whole page, I purposely left some of those white openings that we can play with later. Okay, now that's one color. Now let's go into the brightest color on my palette, and that happens to be Scarlet Lake. I don't think we'll see too much different here with this color, but it is the brightest color, and so I always like to do a little bit of that too. Get on there. Also, you have to bless your painting too. That's really important. So I've got a few spots where I can put this in. I might even decide to soften some of this color and just let it. I always like to have the same color as my flower into the background. So this would be a good good chance now to do that. Let's throw a little back here. We've already got some over here. I like that. Let's pull a little through here. So this is my Scarlet Lake. I'm just popping it here and there. And with just a little bit on my brush, I'm kind of pulling a little path of this pink color through there. I never like to have just green leaves, red flowers, white background. I like to have a little bit of this color of the flower in the background. Now let's see, what else do we need to do? We need to come in while these flowers are still wet with our deepest, darkest red, and that happens to be alizarin crimson. And an interesting thing about alizarin crimson, I purposely waited till the end. This color moves in water. So I'm going to put the alizarin like at the darkest centers here. It's not moving. How can that be? Oh well. I think it'll move, it's just taking its time today. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so alizarin crimson is a color that moves. So if I touch it into a wet area, it's going to move and take on a life of its own. It's just going to do whatever it wants to do. And I like the added depth of color we're getting. So now I'm trying to create some of the mid-tone and dark. So we've got the orange for light, the coral for mid-tone, and now this color for the darkest dark. Right in the center here. And once in a while we bump into that green crayon, which is giving us some really nice dark. I like that. We'll get that juiced up. Okay, we're almost ready to get into our greens again. Now, anytime you want to, you can just grab your crayons and start drawing. I'm going to go into a gray or green. Let's see what I've got. You would think with 40 colors there'd be one here I'm pretty excited about. This is kind of pretty. It's more of a blue. Let's see how we like this. Oh, that's nice. It's a pretty dark. I like the depth of color in it. See, one of the things I want to do is just take off with drawing. I just want to draw some lines in here. But I have to peel it. So now we're just going to have a little fun with some drawing. And it's not even going to be perfect. I don't want it to be anything except fun lines. And a few shapes, because I like the dark. Oh yeah, that's great. Well, I have to tell you, that was a lot of fun. And I still like these early colors that we got in there. So I think we're at the stage where I need to let this dry, and then when I come back, we're going to pop in some hard edges and some more fun stuff. Before I go dry it, I got the idea that I just want to identify that edge. So I'm just taking a crayon that's not real bright, sort of a flesh color actually, and just draw it around here. Yes, that was fun. And the other thing I felt like doing was to absolutely have to get a little bit of yellow. I love getting in some brighter color, like the sun. I need the sun to come out. So I'm just going to throw this in kind of in 3 places. Up here, over here, and over here. And then I'm just going to wet my brush and just kind of smooth this into the sunshine. So that it's really wet right now, but I just feel like doing this. And see, it looked like sunshine here where it went into the wet area. Oh, I like that. I hope we can do more of that. Maybe some over here then. So if it happens to land on dry paper, I'm going to give it a little boost. But when it lands on wet paper, I'm just going to let it do its thing. Didn't mean to go outside the lines there. Okay, so now we're going to give this, I'm going to go dry this and come back and put on the finishing touches. Okay, so this is dry now, and I'm going to try stamping again. I get a second chance here. So again, we're going to take a flat brush and just dampen it, not too wet. I'm going to start with the primary yellow, and the thing is, it has to be on a flat surface so that you're just capturing the veins. Then I'm going to go into quinacridone gold, same thing. Then I'm going to go into French ultramarine blue, same thing, just kind of roll that over. Keep your brush really flat. And I kind of like those, but I think what I'll do it right on top. Okay, so now I need a tissue to press this down. It still didn't get very dark. And then what I usually do is I take and I wet the edges. I should have put some red on it too. I'll just add some now. So now we'll just move and shape a little bit of that. I'm going to try it again. I'm not going to give up. We're getting a pretty good collection of bloopers for the end, the grand finale. Okay, here's a little one. Let me try a different brush. Same thing, not too wet, lots of paint. And make sure you're on the back of the leaf. That's where the veins are. And I've done the bright yellow, now I'm going to do the quin gold. Antwerp blue. Come on, you gotta work. This is not possible that this wouldn't work. This time I'll put some red on it, because the red makes it dark. Red and green make black. Okay, let's try one sticking right out here. So again, we just press it down. with your finger, with the tissue. Oh, it's more like it. So now we finally got one. I'll move in close so you can see what it looks like. And see, what you want to do then is just take a damp brush and kind of fill the color out to the edge. Oh, I think that's so funny. 3 tries to get that. And you know how some of these leaves have the red on them? I don't think I have any here on this particular plant, but frequently when you look at these leaves, you'll see a little red going around. Here's how you do that. You take a red crayon and you take 100 grit sandpaper, and while this is still wet, you actually color sand a little ring of red around it. I'm not doing such a good job here, but it looks better if you do it in a ring. Look at how cute that is. And you always have to be sure it's wet enough. So we'll put a little spray in there. And I might just decide to do that on this one too. Just a little bit of this red coming around. And I think now what we need is we need some kind of patterned textural things happening. Okay, I'm going to do a little color sanding on here, and this is going to give us just a little pattern. But in order to do this, it has to be wet. So this is perfect because I'm going to wet it only where I want it. Remember, my paper was dry. So I'm going to leave that pattern to go around the edge here and to come into this area. And I'm going to put this down. And using colors that would look good in my picture, I'm going to use some kind of yellow-green, maybe a little blue. I think it's time to introduce a little blue. So I'm just going to come in here now and color sand a little pattern. This is almost like a manganese, and that was exactly the color I was thinking of using. And I can control how far I want this to go. Here's the yellow-green. That will look nice. And even if you go on your flower or something, it doesn't make any difference because it's only going to stick where it's wet. So now we're going to carefully remove this. Oh, look at that. That bled in. We like that. We like that. Okay, when I turned it over, I got a little drip here. That's okay. But see, you can see the edges of my paper are still have the white. I think this is kind of fun where that red ran up there. That's the kind of serendipity things I'm hoping are going to happen. So I'm thinking I need to repeat that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come around the corner here, and basically that's it. So again, I'm only going to wet the areas where I want this to stick. I even like that faint green. So there we go. We've got it wet where we want it. Now we're going to put this pattern down and see if I can find the same 2 colors I used. This is the green. Oh no, it's got to be the watercolor pencils. For those of you who think I'm using my watercolor crayons, I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. I just switched to watercolor pencils. These watercolor crayons do not color sand. Here we go. Now I need to go into the manganese. That's it. And again, oh, we almost got the start of some more. This time I'll just turn it over and bang it here. And we need to do it one more place. So the obvious place would be right in here, I think. So again, we're going to come here. And where we wet it, that's the only place it's going to stick. So we'll put this over here. And using the green, and the blue. These happen to be watercolor crayons that have no wooden, they're woodless watercolor crayons. They're wonderful. I better tell you who made these. These are woodless watercolor pencils, and they're made by Cretacolor. And they have absolutely no wood in them. I just love these. They're all color. Now we gotta take off the excess. Ha! See how nice that works? Our outside is still relatively white. And now I think we need to do just a little bit of background. I'm not going to do too much, but I want to do a little bit. So I'm going to take some manganese blue. I just really like this color, and I think the blue and red being complements would be nice. And it's kind of fun when you paint on hot press paper. It's totally different. It's not the same at all. So if I paint over red, I'm going to get a gray. If I paint on the white surface, I'm going to get a lovely blue. You can see I'm pretty cautious. I don't really want to do this. I kind of like it just the way it is. So I think I'm going to stop. Just a couple more strokes. Might be nice to frame this in a little bit. See, if you paint on those watercolor crayons while they're still wet, they activate right away. But if you give them time to dry and bond with the paper, they're actually pretty much bonded. You can, on a cold press paper, you can go over them. On hot press paper, it's a different ball game. Well, I think it's time to do a final draw with my red, the color I started with. Just a little bit of red lines, and we're done. We'll just come in and re-emphasize some of these areas that might have gotten lost. I love line. Drawing is my passion. Jonas might have to take this away from me pretty soon. I actually wanted to break out of the line a little bit if I could. This line. So if I see anything, there might be an opportunity right here. A drawing that isn't painted. I like that. We could do a little bit more here too. Maybe just a little bit more over here. Now we're going outside the line. That's what I really like. We've got some nice soft colors in the background. A few more lines here. If I had more darks, I'd be tempted to come in with something very opaque. But I'm not sure this is going to show up that much. See, it's not, well, it doesn't work when it's wet. You can't draw on it when it's wet. I might be able to draw on it later. I think it's time to quit. That was really fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Now this is the one we did earlier. And you'll notice I did slop quite a bit. I've got green things. I've got a couple of bleed backs. I've got a lot of things around the margins here that could use a little attention. And I'll tell you what, the easiest way to do this is with Q-tips. Very often when people want to clean up a painting, the first thing they do is grab a tissue, wet it, and just start rubbing it. Unfortunately, what that does is it rubs it in. Here's a hot tip. Now, if you'll notice that spot, this is on hot press paper, and just taking some clean water and taking a little extra water off, and I wet both sides, and you'll notice I have a whole handful because I don't let this get dirty. So what I do in a sawing motion as I turn it, which is always leaving a clean surface, see how it's going into the wet. Now I come to the other side. Again, take some of the extra moisture off, and I can just rub it in a continuous motion and keep turning it so that I'm always approaching this with a clean edge. Look at that. Cleaned right up. Now over here we have a bleed back, and I showed you before how you could do that with a tissue, but see, we're against a white surface here. We want this to be clean. So with just a damp Q-tip in a slow motion, and I keep turning it as I'm doing this. Turning, turning. As soon as I get to the end of that, I start over. Turning, turning, turning. And sometimes it's hard to clean it up if it's a staining color, which this could be, but we can get rid of the edge. So just with a rocking motion like this, and always turning it, it's amazing how much cleaner we can get all these edges that might, see, I like these hard edges, but down in the corner here, that is just me being careless. So it's amazing how much time I spend at the end of my paintings to have them professional and to make them as clean as I can. So let's see what happens down here. Again, as I'm doing this, I'm turning it. And when this gets dirty, I flip it over to the other side. And it has to be wet. So you know what I'll be doing the next few minutes. I'll be flipping this around and cleaning up some of the edges. So I just wanted to close by showing you a few pictures I have around the gallery here. This, I love this. Now this started out, this is really mixed media. This started out with the Elegant Writer, and then I wet that. Then I glued in all kinds of tissue papers and ass gaskets and napkins, anything that I felt appealed to me. And then I came in, last thing I did was come in with that fun. Here, one of these crayons, and just drew wherever I felt like it. just to give that added touch of color. See, these are opaque and they really pop a painting. Here's another one, the cave painting. This is actually a painting that's going to be part of my online series. And you can see when I was done, I've got some drawing here with the crayons. Over here, these are white crayons that I drew, doing some of the symbols that they found on the surface. And one of the things that you'll find in a lot of my paintings, a lot of people haven't noticed it, but I almost always come in and do a drizzle with one of these. It's just, it's my signature now. Okay, so I just had to show you this. Now this is a painting, abstract obviously, and you can see here the little lines drizzled on. There's no other lines on the picture but that's my signature. So I frequently do this on my abstract and semi-abstract paintings. Here's another one with grapes and grape leaves and napkins. And see, when the whole thing was done, I took that white crayon and did this little scribble. Here's another one. You saw this one earlier. And there's my little final scribble. I wonder if any of you noticed it. So that's it.